Courage is being scared and doing it anyways, says Dr. Laura Markham. What does this mean? Courage means feeling scared and doing it anyways.
Do you wanna start?
Where it takes me is that we want to instill our kids' values, and courage is one of them. And while studying with Dr. Gordon Neufeld, he's a developmentalist, I learned that courage and the other values actually come from a mix, right? Courage is actually being scared, but also wanting something really bad. And that we can get to this mix only after at least 5 years old, but only when we are allowed to feel each emotion at a time. And then it's a process of maturation, of growing up, that we get to feel the fear, but also the want. And then we are able to mix them. This is where it takes me.
Yeah, because for example, it's very common to tell a person or a child, if you're scared, if you feel scared, then don't do it. If your body's saying you're scared, don't do it. And then that would be just one emotion, like you're talking, he's feeling just one thing. But you could also be scared and do it, because fear is your body's natural way of telling you, I'm uncomfortable, this is new. Like before an exam, for example, you need to plan a little more, you need to study a little more. It's a message, it's telling you something, right? Mm-hmm. It's not telling you not to do it, but it's telling you that you're feeling something now, and if you're scared about doing something, you can be scared and still do it. Mm-hmm. And that's where the courage comes. Mm-hmm. I'll give a couple of examples, because this was for me where it became actually very clear. We traveled as a family to Thailand, and there was a lot of new things for all of us and new experiences for all of us. And it was interesting because what was scary or different or fearful for each one of us was also different. So, for example, one of the kids, he found it very scary to go on a zip line. It was in the rainforest and it was very high, and we are actually quite comfortable going on zip lines, something we've experienced a couple of times, but it was the height. And none of us could relate. And the more I said, you've done this so many times, it didn't change anything. We've done this so many times together, didn't change anything. I came to an extent saying, are you scared? And then I realized that it's denying his feeling, right? He feels scared, and that's a fact. That was a fact. He's feeling scared, and that wasn't going to change. Mm-hmm. So then it was, okay, you're scared and you can do it. And this is where to him it became, okay, this is courage. I'm going to do it because I'm scared and I'm also going to do it. And it was beautiful because after he did do it, he felt so courageous and so proud of himself because he did something that he was scared about doing and still did, as opposed to denying his own feelings. Because looking back, it would have been very difficult for him, for his mom or his dad or the family to tell him you're not feeling scared, because he would doubt himself and he would question his own ability to connect with his feelings. Well, they're all telling me I shouldn't be scared, but I am scared. What's wrong with me? Mm-hmm. And yeah, for each of us, it was different. For one of us, it was climbing up. There was a climbing up the rainfall, very steep rocks. That was another one. For another of us, it was trying new food. They had a lot of non-traditional food for us. So for each, it was something different. And it was very, an empowering experience to be able to acknowledge I am scared and this is uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it anyways. And then that would be the courage. yeah, you know,
if I were to deconstruct what you were saying,
sorry,
if I may, if I were to deconstruct what you were
Please.
saying, if I may, what I heard was that at first you were relating to your child at a mental level. You were telling him, you did this before, we did this, we are, you know, you were at a mental level, whereas he was at an emotional level. And then what I heard was a very aware parent. You were present and you realized, oh, he's feeling something. And then you went to his feeling. You went at the same level with him. And you told him, oh, you're feeling scared. And you made room for that. And you didn't let him feeling scared by himself, but you were there with him, which changes everything. As a parent, that's very important for us to know and to understand. Children need containment, need a safe space to feel. And you made room for that fear. You allowed the fear to be there. Oh, you're feeling scared. And then you also offered him a possibility, and you can do it. But what I heard was you first made room for the feeling. You acknowledged the feeling. You brought it up to consciousness level. You made room for that. And there you allowed him to feel both supported and courageous enough to do it.
Yeah.
And if we think as parents, not just to our children, but also to our inner children, that there's the nugget. To acknowledge and to allow the feeling to be, to create a safe space for it to feel, to be felt. And then everything shifts, everything changes. And it gives us the power. It allows us to feel empowered, right?
Yes. Yes. Only when safety is around. Absolutely.
And safety means connection. It's not just the absence of threat. Safety means connection. It's more than that. It's connection. And where I also went is, you know how we sometimes push children to do something. Like we throw them in the water. This is the most used example, right? You throw them in the water and they swim because they have nothing else to do. They have no choice left. But what this does, yes, it teaches them to swim by need. It doesn't bring their emotion in. It freezes the emotion. And what this does for their life is they will swim, but they will not take pleasure in it. And this is valid for anything else that we do. We do it because we are required to do it, but we don't take pleasure in it. So as parents, to be aware, how can we support the children? And I think your example comes in perfectly. This is how we support the children to also get the pleasure out of it, to keep the feeling or to keep feeling while doing something that asks for courage.
Yeah. And I think with it also, you know, the example that you gave with throwing in the water to swim, it's the drastic nature of it, it's either black or white. You either do it or you don't. You experience it or not. You're either scared or you're not. But there's this gray area that I like to try and get comfortable with also. For example, using the example of the water, you know, dip your toes in, dip your feet in, dip your legs in. And with every single one of these steps, then the child gains more courage and gains more confidence because they have autonomy over their own body, and they can also see that they are day on day gaining more courage. And what that happens is that they can apply this to so many different things. So, remember the day that I couldn't swim, you can either tell them or they will tell you, and then you put your foot in and then you put your leg in and you did that. So take it to another experience, riding the bicycle. You start to pedal first, you put the supporters, or you ride around in a certain place, and then day on day you realize that you can do it. You're building up your confidence.
Yeah, and we somehow come back to this mixing of feelings, because the black and white thinking, that's a sign of not being mature enough yet. Maturation comes with this integrative functioning. When we are able to integrate black and white, when we are able to integrate good and bad, this and that, to think here and there, that's where integration comes, and that's a sign of maturation. In what you were also saying, when you go to your child and you say, remember the day you swam, I was also there. I really want to emphasize this, that you do not let the child alone with this, that you are there by their side, that there's someone there, an adult there, able to contain everything the child is feeling and to provide the connection which helps them move forth.
How would you recommend, sometimes the parent isn't there when something happens. So let's say the child is at school or at a play date or in an experience where something happens that is scary, and they don't have that ability for an adult or someone that secure attachment to contain them. How would you then go back to help the child to process this?
Yeah, you actually process. You are there with them in retelling, in recollecting, and you follow their lead, and you go with them and you process it as they are able to. It's like, if I remember correctly, it's Daniel Siegel with the remote control, right? You help them fast forward, rewind, play, just as much as they are able to. And you are there with them, and you retell that story. You do not shy away from a traumatic experience. You go back to it and you process it at the rhythm of the child.
Absolutely. In being with them and being able to have them express it, because you mentioned trauma, and like what Gabor Mate says, and he says trauma is not what happens to you, but is what happens as a result of that, or what happens inside you as a result of that. Exactly. And it's whether someone was there with you for you to be able to share it with. And it's not physically with you, but the question he always puts out is, think of anything that ever happened to you growing up. Who did you tell?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And it's having that power to be able to tell, not just the power, but I want to say the safety to be able to tell someone, the connection to be able to tell someone, to then process it with them. Yeah. Thank you for adding that.